Welcome to the Boomer Technician channel. Today we're in Indiana at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, and one of the really cool things about the museum here is it's located on the infield of the track. So when you visit the museum, you're inside the speedway, and that's pretty cool. I don't have time to visit it today, but I have been to the Speedway Museum before, and it's a fantastic place to come. If you get to Indianapolis, I recommend you find the time to get here. Today we're going to a car show in a town called Murray, Indiana, about an hour west of here. But we'll get out there and check it out and see what kind of cars we find. By the way, you'll know you're close to the Indy track when you see these fire hydrants painted like a checkered flag. Well, welcome to Mansfield, Indiana. We're here for the Mansfield Mushroom Festival and Car Show, which sounds like an interesting combination. I've already had a little bit of a walkthrough, and there's quite a few cars here, so we will walk down the lines and catch anything interesting and share it with you and do our usual thing. So the car show was set in a tourist town in rural Indiana, and like most Midwest car shows, had lots of American models and a wide variety of years, and the cars were just sort of tucked around this town in various locations. So I walked around and did some filming and tried to get a feel for things. The nice thing about this show is the cars were nicely spread out. There weren't huge crowds everywhere. And the show itself had a very distinct feel to it. Lots of local flavor, lots of neat cars in really good condition. And I'm just always amazed coming to these car shows how cars you rarely see just come out of the woodwork. And I thought it was really neat how the cars were spread around through the town. I was kind of in the overflow lot in a field on the south end of the show, but I'd driven in from Indianapolis that morning and was one of the last cars to show up. But there's just neat cars tucked in every little corner. Before we jump back into the car show, I wanted to talk a little bit about Indiana car culture. Now, there's a lot of people who will say that Indiana car culture can be distilled down to two words: Indy 500. But I'd prefer to choose two different words to represent Indy car culture, and that is Tony Stewart. Yeah, Tony ran the 500 a bunch of times, but he also ran stock cars, he ran open-wheel dirt track cars, and I believe he's currently running drag cars. So much like the Indiana car culture, Tony has dipped his toe into a number of different venues. So, Indiana car culture, what's it all about? Right down from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there's an Allison transmission plant, and throughout the state there's plenty of other secondary component manufacturers. In South Bend, they used to build Studebakers. In Mishawaka, they used to build Hummers. The city of Auburn had Auburn, Cord, and Duesenberg, all in one plant there. And as a matter of fact, a fantastic museum is in Auburn in the old plant. It's a great building full of great vehicles. And of course, South Bend has the Studebaker Museum and other museums sprinkled throughout the state of Indiana. And oh, by the way, the reason I brought Tony Stewart up is he's also a product of Indiana. And with that, let's get back to the car show. So because this was the Mansfield Mushroom Festival and Car Show, it sort of had a county fair feel to it. The backside of the event had some food tents, and then there was a rise, and you went up there, and there was just all sorts of different tents set up selling different things. And if you aren't convinced that it's got the country fair feel, here's your final proof. If you're looking for county fair food, there's nothing like a deep fried candy bar, and here we have 4 options. So it was kind of fun having these fair-like events next to the car show. But let's get back to the cars, starting with this 1954 Ford Ranch wagon in very nice shape. And then we also have a 37 Chevy sedan in deep purple here in the interior barn of the event. The barn had some excellent cars in it. These cars were all competing for trophies and were probably the best of the show. A lot of proud owners who had some vehicles that really stood out. And once again, lots of different years here. We've got a couple of Mustangs here at the top of the sweep here, and then we'll take a look down the second aisle of cars in just a second here. Oh, we got a Vet And from there we jump to an old pickup. Looks like some classic Mustangs there. And then coming up this side, I know we had a couple Challengers and obviously a Camaro, and just some really well turned out cars. You got to love these local fairs and car shows with the great cars that folks bring in. Here's a second generation Camaro. It's got a very nicely turned out motor and a horseshoe shifter, which I don't remember being on the 72 Chevy, but sure enough, there it is. And here we have a nice mid-70s Olds Cutlass 442. And you can see from the oil filler next to the air cleaner assembly there that this is a genuine Olds Rocket V8 along with a genuine Olds Sport steering wheel. And here we have a very nice Ford full-size coupe with some variation of the FE big block under the hood and bucket seats with a console in the interior, which is how they ought to be equipped. Here we've got a Ford pickup, nothing special except it's in absolutely original condition. The engine's got all the correct stickers. The interior looks perfect. Just a spot-on original truck. Here we have an early 60s Suburban 3-door that's not all that original. Looking under the hood, we can see it's got an LS motor, and I'm sure that puts out some serious power. And the interior looks fairly original, but it's got some newer touches and updates. Here's an interesting rig. It's an international pickup from the 60s, somewhere along the line. And as we zoom in here, we can see it's Cummins equipped. And looking under the hood, it's a B-Series like they saw in the Dodge pickups when they first got a Cummins. It's a shame International didn't get that Cummins. It might have helped them maintain a place in the market. And here we have a Volkswagen Thing, which is sort of based on the World War II Kubel wagon. And it's got a lot of VW Beetle parts in it. You can see it's got the upright engine with the tall cooling case from the Beetle. And in the interior, we've got some pretty crude design elements, but it got the job done. And there's lots of folks out there who'd like to own one. And here we have a second 442. This one's inside the display barn. And it was a bit surprising to see two fairly rare cars at the same car show, but you know, that's why we go out and check out what's available. And here's some exterior shots showing more of the fairgrounds. They had a covered bridge and this nice little river. Overall, this was just a really nice location for a car show, and I had a great time while I was there. My nephew came down and met me. He lives up in South Bend, Indiana, so we had a great time. And wrap things up, let's look at a couple of unique things I found, starting with this Mercury truck, which would have been sold up in Canada. And that's followed by this Pontiac Grand Prix with these unique looking wheels, and they're not actually wheels, they're aluminum brake drums. And for those of you who have seen these before and may not understand exactly how they work, I dug up an image off the internet showing how the wheels bolt up to the brake drum, and you can see it's an 8-bolt wheel, and it's got a very large opening for the 8 tabs that bolt up to the drum, and you put them all together and you get this fancy aluminum brake drum. And here's a fancy aluminum side panel on this coupe with the metal cut out into flames and painted accordingly. I thought this was a really great look, and I wanted to be sure to share it with everybody. Well, that wraps up our car show for Indiana. In this case, kind of a combination car show and county fair. I talked to a fella up at the top of the hill, a vendor up there, who said he'd sold 300 6-inch tall concrete mushrooms, which was something I didn't really expect. But that's one of the reasons why you go out to do 50 car shows in 50 states, because no matter where you go, there you are.